Hello and welcome to the third episode of MrEncyclopedia's coding channel, where today we're going to talk about arrays in C++. So, welcome back, and now we're going to talk about the beautiful thing called arrays. Arrays, just to give you a definition before we start coding about it, or coding it, it's a set of whatever you want it to be. It can be a set of integers if you initialize as int. It can be a set of characters, it can be a set of string. Usually it can be whatever you want it to be, the most common one being integers, because arrays are commonly used to store sets of user input, and then we can do whatever we want to that user input and print it out. And I'm going to be showing you how to do that today, and it's relatively simple. However, it can be a bit confusing because it's not the same thing as one integer. So far, we've only been working, let me just code this out really quick. We've only been working using single integers, and we've not been using sets much. And that's mainly all going to change right now. So here, for instance, if we just say int I, and we want to ask the user, we would put cn, or sign, which I like to call it, and I. Sure, and then we can print out whatever I is. So let's say here is the number you inputted, and go like that. Okay, so if you said 5, here's the number you inputted, 5. Okay, so that's mainly a generalization of what we've been doing right now, like using for loops or just while loops. We've only been talking about one number. But now, like I told before, it's also going to change with arrays. And now, let's just initialize an array, and we're going to make it an int array. So int, let's just go with something as simple as array. And typically, the difference between how you write an array is that you'll need to write your names. It can be char, it can be string, and what you want to do is you write down that type first, you put a space, you write down the name of the array. So I'm going to name it, for short, it's difficult for you to make like 3 letters or less, so I'm just going to name it array, the first 3 letters, ARR. And let's do inside the square bracket, what I'm trying to think of is the amount or the containment, the size of the array, just simple terms. So let's say if we say 20 terms, the array can go up to 20. If it exceeds 20, it's not really going to work. Now, for simple purposes, let's do 5. And just so you know, this is not really a set value. You don't always need to input, let's say, like 5 numbers or 20 numbers if the container is 20. It just shows that it goes up to that far. And many people, how they like to do is they like to say like a bigger number, or just count 5 or 4 numbers more than how much they actually need, just in case there's another value that's taken. So let's say if you just put 20 numbers just to be safe. Obviously, we need that semicolon. Now, how do we ask a user for input? That's why, if you haven't looked at my for loop while loop video, then please do. It's already been posted before, and it's in my channel. And the reason why I just said that to you right now is because, believe it or not, we use for loops. So, let's use a simple for loop here. Int I equals 0, just like the way that we learned it. And that's why I told you that the size of this, it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really affect it as long as the loop is within that size. So if you just say I is equal less than 5, then it's going to draw in only 5 integers, mainly, and it's going to ask you for that many integers, even though we have space for 20. So that's why it doesn't really matter as much. And let's do that simple for loop. And how we get this is obviously for taking in user input, we use cin or sign, and we take that array. And since I is the variable that's being moved from 0 to 5 every loop, we have to iterate it through I. And just to show you how that looks like. Obviously we're not printing anything yet, we're going to do that right now, but you can take 4, 5, 6, 8, and that's 5 integers. And now they're all stored in the array. Obviously it's going to change every time we run the code, but yeah. And now how do we, well, output it? How do we show that the user has typed in all this? And there's a simple answer to that question. You won't, or you're not gonna do something like count R. First of all, it doesn't even work because you're not giving that R or whatever you said the array name. It's just gonna do something like this: 0 times 407,020, depending on the numbers that you put in. So what we want to do is, since we used a loop to take in those numbers, because there are an array is a set of numbers, like I told you, it's not just one number, and since we need to use a loop to take in multiple numbers to finish that set, we also need to do the same thing to output it. So what I mean is, we do that same loop, and of course to print out something we do cout, and we do the same thing, array I, and that's gonna print out that many numbers. So now let's try. Actually, let me just put like a divider or something so that it doesn't, boom. Okay, so let's try it. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we got the thing. 4, 56, 7, 8, 9. But why is it, well, why does it all look like it's in one number? Why does it look 456,789? And that's also a simple issue to fix. Basically all you need to do is just like the endl that I put here. And endl basically adds in another line in between, so when you use cout, we can do it for cin, but when you use cout to print something, we can use an endl, so it's gonna look like the exact same thing as how we inputted it. So let me just delete this really quick. Gonna run it again, and so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we have it in the exact same way we put it. And just so you know, this is an array. Now we're gonna talk about our final topic for today, which is indexing. And that indexing can only occur within sets of large numbers. You can't index one singular number, and it's because of the definition itself. Indexing is basically calling out to a specific value within a set. So let's say in this array set, I inputted here I inputted 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it's all a part of the array, right? And that's why when we printed it out, we printed out the entire array, and that's how we got it. So how do we index it, or how do we find value inside it? It's almost the same way that we did for how we initialized the array with a square bracket. We're gonna do the same thing. So instead of that, let's say we don't need a loop for this because we're printing out one value. Let's say you want to print out the first value. In indexing, the first value is not 1. It's 0 because it starts out from 0, and 1, for instance, will be the second value. So let's say we do this. 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm gonna put 8, but since we have our first value, it's gonna print out 4 because our first value is 4, and that's indexing. It's really useful for if you get coding challenges or coding problems that ask you to draw a number from a set or a specific number that you wanted. it's going to be very useful, and we're just going to do an interactive problem here right now, asking the user for input. Okay, so to do that, we're gonna just name another variable. So let's say for input let's not do I, let's do index, so in. Let's do int in. Okay, and then we ask the user to enter first we need to ask it to enter the numbers of our array. Enter your list of numbers, and we can also make so to show limit, enter your list of numbers, or basically enter your list of numbers, right? And then enter the limit of your, and for the sake of it, I'm just gonna do this, enter the limit of your array. Okay, and what the user is gonna do is it's gonna enter the limit. Now enter your list of numbers, and it's gonna enter the list of numbers. We just want an indel for this, and it's gonna enter all the numbers. So what this is gonna do is now we cannot put 5 anymore, since is a limit, so we need to put and so for that many times it's gonna input the numbers, and then you're gonna ask, after this, let's say barricade, you're gonna ask what number do you want to draw from your array, for instance, and that's why we have our input, or in, is going to take in the in, and now, oops, put something here. Okay, so now we have our in, and now what we're going to do is, here is the number you drew. We're going to take that in, and we're going to put it in the array, because the in is the index value, and we're going to put that inside the array so that it will take out that specific number you want to draw. So instead of just asking what number do you want to draw from the array, what, let's say, position do you want to draw from an array? And here the thing is, boom. And so now let's check it and see if it works. I'm gonna delete everything else, and a boom. It seems that in function at main array wasn't declared in this scope. So I think I may have gone a bit too overboard there. I shouldn't have done all that. I made it like long, which would have been adding to the size of the array. Let's actually try that, so that we can make like a really big array and not have to worry about any crazy input that they give. And it's still long, or basically, sorry, it's still too large. It's because if you have C++ has a limit, and you surpass the limit, well, basically it's not going to be right. So since it's too long, we have to basically, and since I was just joking about the long part, you can't actually put it as a value that defines array, or just as a type. You need to put int, char, or string, as told before in the beginning. And I just tried to do long, I'm not really sure why, but we need to make it a smaller number, because C++ has a specific number limit that we cannot pass, and if we pass it, it doesn't work, it doesn't run at all, and that's what you saw right now. So let me just delete all this, and it works now because I deleted some of the zeros off that. Okay, maybe they're not gonna go that crazy. So, and I'm not gonna type in 100 numbers, so I'm just gonna do, let's say 10. Enter your list of numbers. Okay, so 1, 2, 98, 23, 7, 38, 47, 5, 0, 12, and that should make 10. Yeah. Okay, what position do you want to draw from your array? Let's say I want, these are all numbers that or values that I put into my bank account, and let's say I want to draw, these are bills. Like, there's a $1 bill, there's a $2 bill, there's a $98 bill. It's just a weird country that we live in, and that I created. So it's called, I don't know, coding land, and it accepts all kinds of bills. So let's say I want to draw in or withdraw the biggest amount, and I see when I count it, it's gonna be 1, 2, 3. And remember, since during indexing, it starts from 0, so 0 is the first value, 1 is the second value, and 2 is the third value. Since it's the third value, we need to put 2, so don't put 3, and because we put it like that. But here's a number that you drew, 98. There is a way that you can solve it though, because when we understand that 2 is gonna be, well, 3, basically what you can do is, here's the number you drew, you can do in plus 1, or, well, wait, it would be in minus 1, because since, when you think about it, since when we're drawing down like an index, if you're writing down an index, and if you put, let's say 2, it's not really gonna work in the fact that you want it to be. It's gonna draw in the third value. So to make it more normal for 2 to draw in the second value as it technically should, you want to decrease the value by 1. They decrease the index by 1. So that's why in is the index. Minus 1 is why we did it over here. And so now it should work. Essential limit of array, I'm just doing 5, 1, 650, 34, 4. Okay, so what position do you want to draw from the array? So if you put 2 now, you draw as 98, and it's the second position, so it's not drawing 650, because even though I put 2, it doesn't think of it as a third value starting from 0. We've basically almost manipulated the code. We didn't change what an array does. We just, at the very end, we just put a minus 1 so that it can act like normal. And that's just one of the tools you can do. This is basically like a simple response, and they try to joke about it through the long array. Just no, long array don't work. And it's basically just a simple problem that we can do using arrays, and there are multiple or a plentiful amount of things that you can do using arrays, and it's a very useful tool, because obviously when you move forward in your coding career, it's not always going to be asking for one number at a time. It's going to be asking you for a set, and you're going to draw from that set, you're going to output from that set, and sometimes it'll ask you for, just like we did now, indexing that set or finding a value or a number within that set. And you can create many games with this. Like, I just made up a bank analogy, but you can make any game you want with this. If you want to make it more fun, you can easily customize it using C++. And, well, yeah, it's going to really help out in your coding journey, and it's almost like the basis for more advanced coding skills. So, thank you for watching, and please click that subscribe button.